Good afternoon and welcome to Open Classroom. I'm Janet Gillow, Director of Professional Development for the Brown School, Washington University in St. Louis. So happy to welcome you to today's presentation. For our viewers on Zoom throughout this, you are muted. We can't see or hear you, but the chat feature is enabled and we'd like this to be as interactive as possible. So please do feel free to pose your questions, comments, greetings, all of that is most welcome, and we will bring you into the conversation. Open Classroom has provided us a wonderful opportunity to connect during these very hard times for our country and our world. We've learned new things together, and today will be no exception as we'll learn and practice together. I want to acknowledge and thank my co-host, Cynthia Williams, the Brown School's Assistant Dean for Community Partnerships. Cynthia will be in the chat and helping to moderate and elevate questions and comments that you have throughout this presentation. Before we get started today, I just want to let you know what we have coming up in the next little bit. We are back on Tuesday at 12:30 Central. Brown School alumnus Cheryl Wayland is speaking to us about the pandemic and social isolation considerations to support LGBT older adults. Registration is still open for that, and we'd love to have you join us. And then 1 week from today, we are back for the final of the 3 of this series. Same bat time, same bat channel. Please consider registering and joining us if you haven't already made that step. Then we're going to take a 2-week hiatus for the holidays and return with programming on January 5th. We are starting to populate the spring schedule. It's not complete yet, but please visit our website if you'd like to stay up to date on what we're doing. Okay, so now it's my great pleasure to introduce our speaker today, who is an Open Classroom favorite and a good friend of mine. Dr. Megan Keyes is a clinical psychologist who specializes in assessment and evidence-based treatment for PTSD. She has more than 20 years of experience in the trauma field. She's a member of our adjunct faculty at the Brown School and also is the founder of Trauma Empowered Consulting, which provides education and consultation services to professionals working with trauma survivors. And she's here today again to help us learn adaptive coping and relaxation skills specifically geared to health and public health professionals who are on the front lines of the pandemic. So please welcome Dr. Megan Keyes.
Thank you, Janet. I appreciate it. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Open Classroom, and thank you for joining us today. Just to echo what Janet said, our goal with this series is to hopefully provide some level of support to health and public health professionals during the pandemic. If you are not a health professional, we certainly hope that this information is going to be useful to you as well. The primary focus of this series is learning different strategies for managing pandemic-related stress and enhancing emotional well-being. Okay, so these are the topics we'll be covering today. Our new set of adaptive coping skills is going to focus on sleep hygiene, so namely techniques for reducing difficulties and improving sleep quality. Our new relaxation technique that we'll be learning is Progressive Muscle Relaxation, which builds on the breathing technique we covered last week. For individuals who are just joining us for the first time, you will certainly be able to participate in this as well. So I want to start just with checking in with everyone on how the breathing practice went over the last week. We do have a polling question popping up. So I've listed some common barriers that people often encounter when trying to incorporate relaxation practice into their daily routine. However, if you experience some difficulties that are not listed, please feel free to bring those up in the chat and we can try to address those as well. We're going to try to spend about the next 5 to 10 minutes kind of covering questions as much as we can.
Give folks about 10 more seconds to reply.
All right. right, so here are our results. And first, welcome to everyone who is new to the program and didn't join us last week. We're very glad to have you here. As far as folks who did get a chance to knock out some practice, it looks like one of the most difficult ones was just kind of finding the time, got busy, and maybe didn't get a chance to do it. One of the things that I would just kind of recommend with that, and I do think this is a real shift in mindset for some people, is that mental health is a lot like physical health in terms of really involving making intentional choices and engaging in specific behaviors in order to promote good mental health. Unfortunately, good mental health isn't necessarily our fallback position or on autopilot. So one of the best things you can really do is just try to remind yourself that to whatever degree, whether it's daily, whether it's a couple times a week, to whatever degree you can carve out and dedicate some time for these types of mental health skills like relaxation practice or stress reduction, is providing you the best opportunity to be able to fully experience those positive benefits. In terms of the folks, since this was another one where we had a handful of folks who had difficulty being still or relaxing, again, please just keep in mind that physiological arousal that often accompanies chronic stress can make it difficult to be still or sit quietly. Try to remind yourself that you are capable of relaxing because we all have the relaxation response, that basic bodily process that's involved in relaxation. It may just be a matter of it taking a bit more time and practice for your body to be able to be comfortable being still and relaxing. And finally, for the folks who commented on the difficulty focusing. So we touched on this a bit last week in terms of mind chatter. This is a very common obstacle that comes up for a lot of individuals when we do any of these types of exercises that involve kind of turning our attention inward. As best as you can, try to keep a passive attitude towards those thoughts as opposed to getting distracted by them or criticizing yourself for your mind wandering. When you notice your thoughts start to drift, just try to return them to your breath or to whatever you're focused on in that moment in the relaxation exercise. Research does indicate that mind chatter tends to decrease over time as people gain more experience with these techniques via practice. One other suggestion you can think about is sometimes pairing a cue word that you associate with relaxation, like the word relax or calm, sometimes pairing that with your exhale as opposed to counting can help reduce mind chatter as well. So just a few tips that I wanted to give based on kind of the feedback we're getting. Janet and Cynthia, were there any other questions that came up that we'd like to address?
Not so far.
Not so far.
Okay. All right, well, we can go ahead and just move into the new content. We will have another section for questions later in the session, so you can certainly raise questions then if anything pops up. There we go. All right, so what we do know is that early research indicates the pandemic has impacted sleep. Decreased sleep quantity and quality are fairly common, and this is often attributed to difficulties related to stress and anxiety, issues related to lockdown, and changes in schedules. Some emerging studies have shown that the dreams have been impacted by the pandemic. Namely, people are reporting more anxious dreams, as well as dream content that includes things like illness, death, and the virus specifically. A handful of studies have shown that some people are reporting increased sleep, largely due to schedule changes, so that is a positive outcome for some. With regards to our healthcare workers, early studies have shown that there are currently about 30 to 50% are reporting issues related to insomnia. So stress plays a significant role in sleep disruption, largely because of that stress response. When we experience stress, our brain interprets this as a sign of danger and immediately sets off a signal to our body that we need to be prepared to respond. This results in physiological arousal, muscle tension, increased heart rate, rapid breathing, and emotional arousal, feeling nervous or tense or on edge. This arousal is incompatible with sleep because it's basically signaling our body to stay alert and awake in case we need to take action. So while this illustrates the degree to which stress can certainly disrupt sleep, it also highlights that learning strategies to reduce stress may have a positive impact on your sleep. So the stress reduction techniques that were outlined last week in session 1, the relaxation techniques that we'll continue to learn each session, those could potentially have a positive impact on your sleep as well. Okay, when addressing sleep difficulties, it's helpful to understand how sleep works. Essentially, what are the bodily systems that regulate your sleep in terms of your ability to sleep, but also your ability to wake? Those two variables are important to keep in mind because when we're considering sleep difficulties, it's actually a 24-hour issue as opposed to something that solely occurs at night. The two key systems that regulate our sleep are called the body clock and sleep drive. These two systems interact with each other to promote sleep and alertness at the appropriate times, in the appropriate amounts, over the course of 24 hours. While these are physiological systems, our behavior has an impact on them. Therefore, what we do or don't do is able to influence our sleep at some level. All right, so the body clock is a circadian system, which just means that it focuses on the daily rhythm of sleep over the course of approximately 24 hours. The amount of sleep you're getting or not getting does not have any impact on this system. The body clock synchronizes our sleep and other important bodily functions with the light-dark cycle of day and night. Some of the other bodily systems involved include alertness, feeding, and the release of certain hormones. There are two key factors that really influence the body clock. The first is a consistent schedule of daily activities, including your sleep and rise times, as well as meals, exercise, and social interactions. These normal day-to-day activities provide important cues to this circadian system that help keep these different bodily functions synchronized. The second factor is light exposure, which plays a primary role in the release of melatonin, a hormone associated with sleep. So our melatonin levels tend to increase in the evenings as darkness falls, thus promoting feelings of drowsiness. They steadily rise towards our regular bedtime, are maintained through the night, and then naturally begin to drop as we approach our regular rise time the next morning. When we wake up, light exposure ends up suppressing that release of melatonin, promoting feelings of alertness, and those are what are maintained throughout the day until evening when darkness falls and the cycle begins again. So for individuals such as healthcare workers who work nights or have highly variable schedules, this process is often disrupted, which contributes to sleep difficulties. Now, the other key regulatory system is the sleep drive, and this is one that folks sometimes aren't quite as familiar with. This is a homeostatic system, so it's all about balance. This system really seeks to balance a person's activity while they're awake with their need for sleep. The amount of sleep you get absolutely impacts the system because a person's need for sleep is based on the cumulative amount of time they spend awake. One way to think about sleep drive is it's essentially the pressure to sleep that your body produces over the course of 24 hours. When you wake in the morning and get out of bed, your sleep drive starts steadily building over the course of the day. The more time you spend awake and active, the stronger your sleep drive will be at bedtime, and it's typically easier to fall asleep. The less time you spend awake and active, the more diminished that sleep drive will be in bedtime, so it sometimes makes it harder to fall asleep or return to sleep. Now, this system can seem very counterintuitive. Our body's sleep system is designed to compensate for times when we don't get the amount of sleep that we need. However, it focuses on sleep quality over sleep quantity because quality sleep is more beneficial to you than the amount of time that you sleep. If you have a bad night, your body's sleep system will produce more deep sleep the following night as a way to kind of compensate and maintain balance. However, since most of us tend to focus on our quantity of sleep, what we often see happen is that people will attempt to compensate for lost sleep by going to bed a little bit earlier, trying to sleep a little bit later, or taking naps to regain those lost hours. These behaviors actually end up having a negative impact on your sleep drive because the less time a person spends awake and active over the course of 24 hours, the more diminished their sleep drive is going to be at bedtime and the harder it can be to fall asleep. So, when attempting to implement new strategies to promote better sleep, it can be really helpful just to have some realistic expectations about your sleep. So there are 3 very common sleep myths that I'd like to address. The first myth is based on the belief that at least 8 hours of sleep is necessary in order to function. So while research indicates that adults typically need between 7 and 8 hours of sleep a night, individuals have a wide range of sleep needs, and this number does not apply to everyone. Some individuals function best with 6 hours of sleep a night. Some cannot function adequately with anything less than 9. The important thing to remember is to not become too fixated on a specific number, because if you don't reach that number, that can create stress, which we know can disrupt sleep. The second myth really revolves around the belief that if I have a good night's sleep, I'll wake up feeling refreshed. So typically it's fairly normal to wake up and feel sleepy or groggy up to about 30 minutes. This is actually referred to as sleep inertia or sleep drunkenness. It's a transient state that's mostly impacted by the stage of sleep you were in at the time that you were awakened. So again, just be aware that how you feel immediately upon waking up is not necessarily indicative of how well you slept or how you're going to feel or function throughout the day. And our final sleep myth is a really big one, so it's really important for folks to kind of clearly understand this. This centers around the belief that a good night's sleep means I fall asleep when I go to bed and I sleep straight through without waking up until morning. And unfortunately, this is just simply unrealistic. Awakenings and arousals are a normal part of our sleep process. Research indicates that we typically wake up close to 12 times over the course of a night, though many of those awakenings are so brief we don't even remember them. Research also indicates that over the course of those various awakenings, we may spend up to about 30 minutes awake in bed trying to return to sleep. So these are just some basic sleep facts that are really important to be aware of going forward, especially as you're trying to determine if any of these skills are helping improve your sleep. All right, so we're now ready to focus on some different research-based strategies for improving sleep. Please note these guidelines and practices are not intended to substitute professional health treatment should such care be warranted. They are being provided as self-help tools for your own use, but I will be touching on some suggestions for seeking professional assistance as well. Also, just keep in mind that these recommendations are being made in the context of disrupted sleep. For example, if you're someone who regularly incorporates naps into your routine and you're not experiencing significant sleep difficulties, there's likely no need to discontinue them. We will be presenting a range of strategies because we want people to have options so that you can determine what works best for you. Okay. With regards to sleep regulation, consistency is important for both systems, especially your sleep and rise times. Looking at the body clock, that first set of suggestions focus on ensuring adequate daylight while you're awake. Natural light keeps our body clock running the most efficiently. So to whatever degree you can gain some exposure over the course of the day may be helpful. We also want to be mindful of reducing bright light exposure in the evenings leading up to bedtime. Research indicates that bright light from electronic devices disrupts that release of melatonin, so reducing screen time before bed is recommended. And finally, for individuals who work nights, there are just a few simple suggestions to try to reduce light exposure as you prepare to sleep during the day. Looking at our sleep drive system, most of these suggestions focus on maintaining your sleep drive over the course of the day to promote better sleep that night. Research indicates that varying your sleep schedule by more than 1 hour, going to bed earlier, sleeping later, can impact your sleep drive. So this just illustrates how kind of highly synchronized our sleep system is and how just a small variation can have a pretty substantial impact. Although a consistent bedtime is helpful, trying to force yourself to sleep when you're simply not sleepy often is unsuccessful. So we do recommend considering postponing your bedtime until you start to naturally feel a bit more sleepy and drowsy. This usually results in an easier time falling asleep. If you need to nap based on your work schedule or to ensure safety for a certain task, just try to keep it brief and earlier in the day to minimize its impact on your sleep drive at night. And then finally, research indicates that daily moderate exercise, maybe a 30-minute brisk walk, has been found to help enhance sleep. All right, so this second strategy really focuses on mental associations. We want the bed and bedroom to be a cue to our brain for sleep versus being awake. The best way to strengthen this mental association is to limit sleep to the bed, and there's a few ways that we can do that. So first, don't remain in bed if you're not sleeping. If you have difficulty falling asleep or returning to sleep after about 15 to 20 minutes, leave the bedroom and don't return until you start feeling drowsy or sleepy again. If there's no other room for you to go to due to limited space or others in the household, just focus on getting yourself out of bed and not returning until feeling drowsy. During this interval that you're out of bed, try to engage in a calming or relaxing activity, nothing too activating or stimulating. This can be a great time to incorporate some of the relaxation techniques. Also, if at all possible, try to keep the lights dim and the noise or sound kind of minimal or low. One of the second ways to really strengthen this mental association between your bed and sleep is to not do wakeful activities in bed. Activities such as reading, watching TV, phone calls, video chats. Doing these types of wakeful activities in bed, even if they're non-stressful and enjoyable, involves some degree of alertness, and this actually strengthens the mental association between your bed and being awake. So if this is a strategy you're interested in and really want to try to strengthen that mental association between bed and sleep, the only two activities that should be taking place in your bedroom are sleep and sex. All other wakeful activities should hopefully be relocated elsewhere in the house. All right, this strategy is pretty straightforward, our wind down period. This just basically involves incorporating a designated interval before bedtime as a transition from wake time to sleep time. And really the key to this is that during this wind down period, try to avoid activities that are stimulating or stressful. So the wind down period is not the time to try to fit in your daily exercise or review your Outlook calendar, but it's also not the time to have emotional or stressful conversations or to expose yourself to content, such as social media or the news, that can exacerbate stress. The goal is to really use this protected time to engage in some type of calming or relaxing activity. And again, this can certainly be a period to incorporate some relaxation techniques to help promote better sleep. And finally, for our last strategy for improving sleep, this really involves a lot of logistical issues around improving sleep. So research indicates that a dark, quiet, and cool environment promotes better sleep. The use of low-level lighting in your bedroom and bathroom at night is to help minimize bright light exposure. With regards to sound, there's a lot of variation here. Some people have difficulty sleeping if it's too quiet, or they prefer a steady background noise to help mask other sounds. So a lot of this is just determining where you fall on that noise spectrum and trying to achieve that as much as possible. With regards to diet and exercise, just a quick word about alcohol as a stimulant. While alcohol can certainly sometimes help folks feel more relaxed and more easily able to fall asleep, it does act as a stimulant in our systems after a couple hours, and research has linked it with more frequent awakenings during the night. Just be aware, dehydration can result in sleep disruption, and heavy or late meals can result in sleep disruption as well, largely because they sort of place our sleep system and our digestive system at odds with each other. It's all part of that body clock, trying to synchronize these different bodily functions. And again, once again, with exercise, research indicates that people who are more active sleep better. Some studies have shown that even moderate exercise helps people fall asleep faster and sleep longer. All right, so this is on repeat from last week because I just want to ensure anyone who knew is aware of this information. Once again, part of adaptive coping is recognizing when professional assistance may be helpful. Here are some potential indicators to keep in mind regarding whatever changes or symptoms you may experience. If these symptoms start to occur more often than not over an extended period of time, start to feel unmanageable or out of control, or are creating conflict in your close relationships, if these symptoms are getting in the way of you doing things that you want or need to do, and finally, if any of these changes involve safety concerns, thoughts of hurting yourself or others, frequent thoughts of death and dying, even vague better off dead feelings. These are all indications that professional assistance may be helpful, at least for an evaluation to determine what's going on. For anyone considering psychotherapy, please be aware there are many time-limited, evidence-based treatments for addressing issues such as insomnia, depression, and anxiety. This resource from Psychology Today is very user-friendly. It does allow you to search a range of mental health clinicians, including psychiatrists, based on the type of provider you want and your location. And finally, I just always want to ensure that everybody has access to a crisis line if needed. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is a 24/7 confidential resource for individuals in crisis or who have a loved one in crisis. Their website offers a wide range of resources as well. I would encourage you to consider putting that phone number and website into the contact list on your phone, just to ensure that you have it at hand should you ever want or need it for yourself or someone else. All right, with regards to resources, Headspace and Calm are both stress reduction apps that have a sleep program that includes various stories, sounds, and relaxation techniques for promoting sleep. COVID Coach is a free app developed by the National Center for PTSD as a mental health resource for managing pandemic-related stress. It offers a wide range of research-based techniques for issues such as sleep, stress, anger, feelings of sadness or loneliness, and relationship conflicts. With regards to online resources, these sites provide a range of educational information regarding sleep, sleep difficulties or disorders, and treatment options, including sleep medication. Okay, so I just wanted to pause for 1 second before we transition into the second half of our seminar today that's going to focus on a relaxation technique. Did anybody have any questions or anything they felt like they needed addressed right now before we move on? And we will have another question session at the end.
There is a question that was sent to me. The question is, are both systems, homeostatic and circadian, the same for older adults, barring medication or health issues?
So we do know that in general, with our body clock and our sleep drive, we do know that for older adults, sleep difficulties tend to be much more prominent, and they do tend to sometimes experience more difficulties with insomnia. The greatest change we see with older adults is they actually tend to revert back to kind of a common sleep pattern that most of us have as had infants or young children, which is going to sleep a bit earlier in the evenings and waking a bit earlier in the mornings. The biggest thing I want to stress for older adults is a lot of people assume, well, I'm starting to have sleep problems just because I'm older. A lot of treatments are available to address sleep difficulties in older adults. So please don't think that it's something that you simply just have to live with because of your age. And with these resources that I listed here, I know some of these, don't remember which ones exactly, do have information about sleep at an older age and what to expect and suggestions for helping with that, in addition to what we've covered today.
Dan asks, out of curiosity, what is the duration of a typical wind down period?
Usually we recommend 30 to 60 minutes. That's just kind of on average. If you can do the 60, I think that's more helpful, simply because, again, think about those systems we talked about with our sleep drive and body clock. They're trying to balance these different factors that promote alertness and sleep. So it's not as simple as just flipping a switch. Oh, my day's done. Now it's time to go to bed. This is a complicated system where these different things need to really be able to one ramps up as the other ramps down. They need to be synchronized together. So 30 to 60 minutes is the suggestion, but if you can push it towards the 60, I do think it may give you a little bit more help with winding down before your actual bedtime.
Thank you. And a comment from Mimi. She said that she really liked the information on not feeling well rested when you first awake. That myth has actually been used in another course I teach on sleep. I'll amend.
Well, that's great. But yeah, those sleep myths, I've worked with many clients over the years who have experienced an incredible amount of stress about their sleep based on some of these just sort of unrealistic expectations on these kind of sleep myths that are out there. So I'm glad that was helpful, Mimi.
And the last one is, her comment was, the National Council on Aging has sleep hygiene info. And then the side question was, is it a myth that lack of sleep impacts or promotes dementia and or Alzheimer's?
I don't know the literature on that one, so I apologize. I can't speak to that directly. I'm not familiar with that. I most certainly don't want to misspeak or overstate something. Okay, are we good?
We are good.
Okay, we will pick up. All right, so we are now going to segue into our second relaxation technique, progressive muscle relaxation. So as we know, stress results in muscle tension. However, many times we're unaware of that tension until it reaches a point of acute discomfort or pain. Headaches, tight neck and shoulders, soreness from a clenched jaw. This unawareness of the state of your muscles can result in physical issues such as cramping, poor circulation, stiffness, and fatigue. Physiological tension can also contribute to feelings of anxiety, which ends up exacerbating your experience of stress. So although the primary purpose of PMR is to reduce muscle tension, there are additional benefits. Learning how to recognize muscle tension in your body and release it can enhance physical and emotional well-being. The immediate effects of PMR include reduced heart rate, breathing rate, and blood pressure, all of which counteract the physiological arousal due to chronic stress. PMR has also been found to be effective for treating a range of psychological and physical conditions, such as those listed here. Right. So progressive muscle relaxation is considered a more active relaxation technique. So this can be a good option for individuals who may find it difficult to relax while sitting still. In this technique, you'll be actively tensing and releasing various groups of muscles. This focused awareness on a specific muscle group helps you differentiate how tension and relaxation feel throughout different parts of your body. Being familiar with how tension feels helps you be able to recognize it and release it. Being familiar with how relaxation feels helps you ensure that that tension is fully released and those muscles really are relaxed. So tensing the muscles before releasing them is solely for the sake of creating a contrast between those two states, which just helps you better discriminate between the two. Actively tensing simply means tensing the muscle enough that it contracts, you can feel that tightness or pressure, and it's noticeable. Please do not tense your muscles to the maximum amount possible because it's just unnecessary. We don't need that level of contrast, and we definitely don't want anyone to end up in pain or a muscle spasm. Pain is a stressor for our bodies and can elicit the stress response, which is counterproductive since our purposes with this technique is to promote relaxation. And finally, when releasing the muscle tension, just fully and completely release the tension right from the start. Trying to slowly release muscle tension usually just ends up sustaining some level of tension for a longer period of time. All right, so rating your stress level before and after each of these relaxation exercises helps you make an informed decision in terms of how effective these skills are for reducing your stress. Tracking your stress levels over time is a helpful way to monitor how much your skills improve with practice. So we use a basic 0 to 10 scale, with 0 meaning no distress at all, totally relaxed, and 10 being your maximum level of distress. So for most individuals at a 10, you can usually feel that stress response at some level. Sweaty palms, tightness in your chest, rapidly beating heart. It can be helpful to personalize your stress scale by thinking of a particular activity or experience that is your personal 0 as well as your personal 10. These personal anchors simply serve as reference points so that you can best determine where your stress level falls on that 0 to 10 range. All right, before we jump into explicit instructions, I just want to touch on a few things about this exercise. As always, if at any point during these exercises you feel uncomfortable, you are always welcome to stop if desired. If you have an injury or chronic pain issue, please do not tense that specific muscle group. If you are tensing a muscle group and experience acute pain, please stop tensing. You'll just want to focus on the release only portion of this technique for these specific areas. That pain is telling you that those muscles are already tense, so attempting to release the tension will be most helpful to you. And finally, as you practice these exercises in the coming weeks, if you experience any enduring negative side effects, please consider consulting a physician or health provider. All right, so our directions this week, once again, I'm going to ask that you please either sit upright in a chair or lie on your back. Once again, I'm going to ask that you please close your eyes just to help direct attention inward and focus on those physical sensations associated with PMR. If this is uncomfortable or you prefer to keep your eyes open, please just try to find a point on the wall or something in the room that you can focus on just to minimize distractions. I'll be asking you to progressively tense and release different muscle groups throughout your body and to notice the physical sensations that result. I'll be asking you to tense for about 5 seconds and then relax for about 10 seconds. Try to engage in abdominal breathing if possible, since this is the breathing pattern associated with relaxation. There's no need to count your breath like we do during a formal breathing exercise. However, if you can't do this or don't want to do this, feel free to just breathe normally. That is perfectly okay. When practicing at home, once you complete one sequence of tense and release, you'll want to go through and do it a second time to complete the full exercise. For our purposes today, we'll just go through the muscle group once, and we'll be doing this exercise for between about 8 to 10 minutes. Okay. If everyone is in position, if you could please just check in and rate your current stress level on a 0 to 10. Okay. And if you could please close your eyes and we'll begin. Just begin to relax by taking a few slow, easy breaths. Breathe in and out. Breathe in and out. Breathe in and out. Clench your fists and bend your hands back at the wrist. Notice the tension in your fists and forearms. Now release. Just let your hands drop. Feel the looseness in your hands and forearms as those muscles relax. Bend your elbows and tense your biceps. Notice the tightness in your upper arms. Now release and relax. Notice the difference between tensing and relaxing. Turn your attention to your head and raise your eyebrows high. Feel the tightness this creates across your forehead. Now relax. Feel your forehead become smooth as the tension releases. Squeeze your eyes closed and keep them shut. Feel the tension in your eye muscles and into your temples. Now release, letting your eyes relax. Keep your eyes gently closed as you focus on that feeling of relaxation. Open your mouth wide as if yawning. Notice the tightness in your jaw. Now release. Let your mouth close and your lips remain slightly parted. Just feel the muscles in your jaw relax, relaxing more and more. Gently raise your chin as if looking at the ceiling. Feel the tension this creates in your throat. Now relax, lowering your chin, and feeling that tension slowly melt away. Notice the difference between tensing and relaxing. Gently drop your chin as if looking at the floor. Feel the tightness this creates in the back of your neck. Now release. Return your head to a comfortable position. Feel those muscles slowly release, relaxing more and more. Raise your shoulders up to your ears. Feel the tension this creates in your upper body. Now relax. Just let them drop back down. Feel that relaxation spread through your shoulders, throat, and neck. Breathe in and fill your lungs completely. Hold. Now exhale, breathing out all the tension. Let your chest muscles become smooth and relaxed. Breathe in and out. Tighten your stomach muscles. Feel the tension in your middle. Now relax, feeling those muscles release. Notice that relaxation spreading through your abdomen. Slowly arch your back without straining. Focus on the tension this creates. Now release. Let that tension just fall away. Feel your back slowly relax, relaxing more and more. Tighten your thigh muscles. Feel that tension in your upper legs. Now relax and feel the difference. Breathe in and out. Straighten and tense your legs by pulling your toes towards you. Feel the tightness in your calves. Now release, letting those muscles become smooth and relaxed. Your legs may even feel a bit heavy as they relax even more. Curl your toes under, tensing your feet. Notice the tightness in your feet and ankles. Now relax. Just let your feet go limp. Feel the difference between tensing and relaxing. Breathe in and out. Breathe in and out. Focus on the sense of relaxation and looseness in your body. Continue to breathe slowly. Feel the relaxation spread from the top of your head into your neck and shoulders and down your arms. Feel the looseness extend from your upper back to your lower back, through your chest, down into your stomach. Feel the relaxation continue to travel down your legs, from your thighs to your calves and into your feet. Breathe in and out. Breathe in and out. Take a moment to feel your whole body loose and relaxed, calm and resting. Take one last breath. Breathe in and out. And please open your eyes. Okay, so I'd like everyone to just take a moment to check back in on your stress level, that 0 to 10 scale. And then we're just going to check in to see how folks responded to this exercise. And just take a few minutes for the poll to complete. And again, we are going to open it up for questions and discussion. So please feel free to pop any of those into the chat box for us as well.
So 5 more seconds to answer.
Okay, excellent. So it looks like for the most part, folks are feeling at least somewhat more relaxed. We had a few folks who maybe felt about the same or feel a little more stressed. Just to speak to that for a second, please keep in mind, like I said, these relaxation skills really do have a big practice effect. So for your first time trying one out, if you didn't notice a big shift or a shift that you had hoped you would get, that is not that uncommon since this was the first time. For some individuals, they will notice when they try to relax or to implement a relaxation technique that anxiety or stress may spike a little bit. This is actually fairly normal. What we do find is that, like we said, for a lot of individuals who have been under stress for an extended period of time, relaxation isn't something that feels that familiar to your body anymore. And our body typically responds to the unknown or the unfamiliar with stress. So just please keep in mind that for a lot of individuals with practice over time, they do notice that anxiety start to lessen. The other thing I want to offer is one of the reasons we offer a range of relaxation techniques is we know that not all are going to be equal appealing or effective for everyone. So if you try one and it wasn't quite what you'd hoped, just please keep in mind there are other options out there. All right. Let's go ahead. I'm going to shut this down and let's go ahead and open it up for questions if anybody or discussion, anything anybody would like to say during the remainder of our time.
Go ahead, Jen. I see you're on mute. Go ahead. Okay.
Oh, there you go, Jane.
Go ahead, Jen.
Unmuted, but I can. Megan, thank you so much for that. Lots of positive feedback in the chat. People echoing what I would say, which is you have such a wonderful voice for relaxation. I kept yawning.
Good. That's a good question.
Lots of Well, Cynthia, do you want to lead off questions?
Sure. We have really nice comments, but I'm not quite sure about this comment question. Can you talk about why 2 rounds? That might be clearer to you.
Oh, sure. And that's honestly just increasing your practice. We do it once, but part of doing it once is just helping you become used to the technique and kind of your body becoming used to the technique. This is what we're doing right now is called tense and release progressive muscle relaxation. It's the basic procedure that we typically start with when we do PMR training. And the goal of this is to really help you recognize tension and be able to release it. So that's another reason that we do that twice is just to help improve your skills with really becoming familiar with how tension and relaxation feel. Informal training, which normally takes place across several sessions, once you've mastered this, we move into release-only relaxation, which means you no longer have to tense the muscles. You're just able to scan your body, identify where the tension is, and focus on releasing that tension. And that's basically the suggestion I was giving to folks who have pain issues, to just use that technique so you don't exacerbate the pain.
All right, Faith, Faith said, I noticed that the stress tightness seems to be stubborn in my neck and shoulders. Any additional advice?
Yeah, so normally one of the things with this type of exercise is that it will help you get in touch with places in your body where you may carry stress very frequently. And that can be really obvious, whether it be through stiffness or even mild soreness. I would suggest with this one that if you are noticing muscle tension is something that's fairly resonant for you, just try to continue to complete this exercise for it. The more that we can get your overall body to relax, that can still help contribute to relaxation in a particular place that may hold a lot of tension. So still doing the full body exercise can still definitely help to kind of decrease stress and physiological tension and contribute even though you have a very focused area.
There's a request for that the mobile apps be repeated. And
certainly.
Okay, go ahead, Megan.
Okay, so the mobile apps are called Calm, Headspace. Oh, here, what? Sorry, I was going to see if I can just go back to the slide for y'all. Calm, Headspace, and COVID Coach. There they are. Calm, Headspace, and COVID Coach. We do have a resource list from today, and all of this is going to be on there. But yes, these are the 3 key apps that I like to suggest. The first 2 because they really do have research behind them and you can access that research on their website. And the third one, although it is new relative to the pandemic, it does focus on research-based techniques.
Okay. There is one other question that I want to raise. Would you talk a bit more about the importance of why hydration is important?
Oh, I don't know if I'm going to have a huge explanation for that. Part of it again just goes back to the sleep drive and body clock synchronizing many different systems. And when one of those systems is essentially off track or kind of out of whack, it it's going to have an impact on those other systems. So since part of our sleep drive and part of our body clock and that sleep regulation system does involve things like feeding and meals and things like that, when one of those is sort of lacking or slightly off track, just like having the later meals, that can impact the other systems. I don't know the biology enough to say specifically what's taking place in your system when you're dehydrated, but this is one of those examples where sleep is closely linked to these other bodily systems, and they very much can influence each other.
Great. So a couple more questions coming in through the chat. Laura is wondering whether you would recommend using the progressive muscle relaxation if she wakes in the night, laying in bed, trying to get back to sleep. What thoughts do you have about this application, Darren?
Absolutely. A lot of times with sleep hygiene, some of the recommendations are to use relaxation techniques either before bed, like as part of your wind down, or if you do have those intervals where you can't return to sleep, using these as a way to help kind of promote relaxation in order to return to sleep. So these are absolutely useful and helpful to incorporate into your sleep routine as well, if it's something that you feel like would be beneficial to you.
Great. And Tanya is wondering about regulating your clock. Is there a way to regulate your sleep clock?
Your body clock? So with regards to the body clock, the biggest thing that helps regulate it is consistency. And that's consistent bedtime and rise time, even on weekends, even on days off, even on vacation. If you really want it to run as reliably as possible, keep consistent bed and rise times. And with regards to those other daily activities, meals, exercise, try to maintain consistency with those as well. One of the things that we know about the body clock is that when individuals do use weekends maybe as a chance to sleep in several extra hours to catch up on sleep, that can potentially have the same impact on your body as flying across several time zones. And people can actually experience symptoms of jet lag just from sleeping in several extra hours. And again, like I said, it's all about kind of your body clock matching that clock on the wall. And when there's a discrepancy between the two, that's where you start to notice difficulties with falling asleep or staying asleep. So that the consistency part is incredibly important.
Wonderful. So we have just a couple minutes left in the hour, and I think you have a couple more things that you wanted to share with the group before we sign off.
Absolutely. Mostly, I just wanted to kind of give folks just a little bit of a heads up for practice. If you would like to continue to practice over this week to build the skill, again, try to fit in the exercise twice a day if you can. I'm kind of giving you guys like the optimal practice experience. We realize life gets in the way. There's going to be days that go by that you don't get anything in. My bottom rule is if we can shoot for more, whatever we get in kind of below that, at least we're getting something in. So just that's kind of a general recommendation for kind of as best you can do there. Try to continue to practice breathing as well. Most of these skills, research indicates that it does take several weeks to really become proficient with them. So we don't want to let that one drop off the radar. You are welcome to guide yourself through the PMR exercise. You're welcome to fast forward to the YouTube video and use the guided exercise we just did and just listen to that off YouTube. COVID Coach, that app, does have a guided PMR exercise and a guided breathing exercise. So that can be another option for you. And finally, last week, a gentleman requested some additional resources for breathing skills. I did track down a couple that just offer some other types of abdominal breathing exercises and additional breathing exercises. I also pulled a few more for PMR, and all of those are listed on our resource page from today. This was just a basic Google search, so I just pulled these off the public domain, but I wanted you all to have some additional resources if you wanted to expand your practice. But other than that, that's everything we had for today. Certainly hope this was helpful and you feel like you learned something. Next week will be our third and final session in this series, and we'll be focusing on issues related to grief and loss, as well as our final relaxation technique of guided imagery.
This was wonderful, Megan. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you from the audience. Yes, I will be hopefully in the audience or moderating, co-moderating on session number 3. This was everything.
Oh, that's great.
Megan, thank you so much. Cynthia, thank you to our audience for such wonderful questions and comments. We really appreciate all of that. Hope to see you for the third part of the series. I've dropped links to the slides and references already. They are posted on the Open Classroom website. We'll have a copy of this available on the YouTube channel within just a couple of hours. Please do make use of that. So everyone, thank you so much. Please stay healthy and safe out there. Happy Hanukkah if it applies. And hope to see you at Open Classroom very soon. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.